Let me start. So to give a brief history, what Selenium, why Selenium? So before that, why automation? As everyone knows, people go for automation. The reason is to reduce the human effort. In order to reduce the human effort or to reduce the continuous testing of a particular module which was already implemented and new modules are getting implemented, and to make sure that the older modules or older functionalities are not getting affected because of this new implementation, people go for automation. And there are many tools in the world of automation which can be used for automation, like QTP, Sahi, Selenium, Sikuli, Renorex, etc. Why people are going for Selenium? Why people are so much addicted, or we can say many companies are preferring for Selenium? As everyone know, the first thing is Selenium is an open source tool. It's a purely open source tool, and you don't require to pay anything for any person for that, except the salaries for the company pays salaries for people who they employ for Selenium automation engineering. The second thing is Selenium supports multi-language. Is there any advantage of using a particular language? I do say that there is no advantage, Annapurna. Like, the reason there is no advantage is the people who wants to use their particular language, because my educational background is I did my project on Java, so I do not have any knowledge on .NET. So Renorex, if you take Renorex as a tool, I need to learn C# and then start implementing this Renorex tool. So that some people feel that learning C# is another new headache and all those things. So there is no particular thing that there is an advantage with this particular language. You can go ahead and use any language you wish and you know. Got your answer, Annapurna? So Chandana's question, Selenium, is it mandatory? No. In Java in depth? No. There is, people has a wrong assumption that they need to have very good knowledge on Java to learn Selenium. I totally disagree with this word. The reason is, I tell you that if you have very good understanding, at least not very good, like if you know what is a class, what is a method, what are data types, what are return types, what are conditional statements, and some other like 4 to 5, like what is extents and what is a list, around 10 concepts. If you have even general knowledge on that, learning Selenium is a matter of like a small piece. It's a very small thing for you to learn Selenium. People are wrong assumption that you need to know very good knowledge of Java, then only you can learn Selenium and implement it. I totally disagree. Just to give a small intro, that when I started my career, I was a C# developer. I learned in my curriculum C#, but today I am implementing Selenium using Java. So it did not make me any difference to implement and learn Selenium, because I learned C# and I am implementing Java, because the core concept, the knowledge, the people whoever learned C language, there also you learn what are data types, what is a method, what is a class. The same thing you use, but a little difference. That's make the difference. So don't be in the assumption that you need to learn very good knowledge of Java. Even if you don't have Java, from our end, from our training institute, we will arrange 3 to 4 sessions, at least 3 sessions of Java, so that you can get refreshed some knowledge on Java. Okay. So Chandana. Okay. So Prabhakar has a question. Which language is used widely on Selenium testing tool and which have more openings? So I don't say that I am using Java, so Java has more openings. To be open, Prabhakar, sorry, I apologize you, Prabhakar, that Java has openings a lot compared to any other language, because Java again is an open source, and there are many features which can be integrated with Java, like continuous integration tool like Jenkins, and integration of uh, this particular with GitHub, and all those things are very good when compared to any other languages. Prabhar, you got your answer from mine? Yes, thank you. Thanks for your questions. So let me go ahead with next question. So multi-language support. So this was the first advantage that made Selenium very famous in the world. The second advantage is multi-operating system. See, if you take any tool in the world of automation, there are no tool in the world of automation which can support more than 2 operating systems. If you take UTP, only Windows. If you take RunnerX, only Windows. If you take Sikuli, it supports Linux and Windows. So this is the only tool which supports Mac, Windows, as well as Linux as well. So this was another advantage that made Selenium more famous in the world of automation. Another biggest advantage is multi-browser support. If you take any tool in the world of automation like QTP, RunnerX, they support Firefox and Internet Explorer. But if you take Selenium, it supports Firefox, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Safari. Along with that, even it supports mobile testing as well. You can do Safari automation of iOS automation, as well as you can also do Android automation as well. So this is the another biggest advantage this Selenium team has implemented. Okay. So now, not to bore you, just another 5 minutes of introduction. That's to tell about what the different modules available in Selenium. So Selenium consists of 4 modules. Selenium IDE. So just want to show you, it's Selenium IDE, Selenium RC, Selenium Grid, and Selenium Webdriver. So small intro about all these 4 flavors. Selenium IDE is a pure record and playback tool. Selenium IDE is a pure record and playback tool, which is an add-on for Firefox. There is no add-on for IE or Chrome related to Selenium IDE. People who do not have any knowledge of automation and just want to see the flavor, what automation is all about, they can just go through record and playback of this IDE and can just see what this how automation works and all those things. And what is this RC? Selenium RC, Selenium Remote Control. Selenium Remote Control is another tool, another API available in Selenium, which is an older version. It is called 1.0 version, which was the first implementation done by Jason Huggins in ThoughtWorks, where he implemented using JavaScript for a particular application where he was doing a multiple regression of a particular application. So at that time, he felt to implement, extend it, and release it to the market, and they called it as Selenium RC. So now it is deprecated. That means it is no more used. The reason was it was purely developed using JavaScript, and it wasn't directly communicating with the browser. It was communicating with a server called Selenium RC server. Selenium RC server was then communicating with the browser's sandbox, JavaScript sandbox. Then it was trying to simulate the actions on the web application that was invoked. So this was the biggest disadvantage. So that's where the Selenium RC team has removed the Selenium RC and come up with a new API called Webdriver, which was implemented by a person called Simon Stewart. This person has implemented purely on object-oriented programming using HTTP protocol. So this had many advantages, like this can directly communicate with the browsers and perform the actions, and you don't require to perform it has also provided some specific browser level implementations as well. Like if I am using Chrome, which may have some different features compared to FF or IE, so that can be using some native features of Chrome. That features can be invoked specific to Chrome or IE or Firefox as well. So along with this, they have also added a new feature called HTML unit driver. I think I have some questions. Okay, Prabhar has a question like, please repeat disadvantage of RC. Okay, so the question, the first disadvantage. Okay, so let me give some more intro about this question, like disadvantages. So the first thing was Selenium RC. The first disadvantage was you required to invoke a server called Selenium RC server to run your scripts. Whatever the scripts that you have written for any browser, this particular server has to be invoked. This server, the scripts communicates with the server communicates with the browser's sandbox, JavaScript sandbox. Every browser has a JavaScript sandbox. So the server communicates with this JavaScript sandbox, and JavaScript sandbox will perform the simulation of the actions of Selenium commands. So there is no direct communication. It's a three-way communication between, there is a broker called RC server that communicates with the browser and performs the actions. So what happens is, every time you want to invoke your browser, you need to communicate with this server. So there may be a latency, or there may be a communication gap between this browser and the server. At that time, the possibility of the scripts failing also would be high. Along with that, the disadvantages, as Prabhakar has asked more in depth, so I'm just getting in depth of the disadvantages, as this was purely developed using JavaScript and it wasn't used with object-oriented programming. So let me tell a small intro about object-oriented programming. Let me take example of a car. We have Audi, we have Maruti, we have BMW, we have Land Rover, Jaguar, etc. Everything is a car. The prototype is a car, but every car has 4 tires, a gearing system, a accelerator, and a horn system, and etc. But every car has its own advantages. The common features are tires, accelerator, gearing system, all these things. But every car has its own features, like some cars may have an AC, some cars may not have, some cars may have power steering system, and some cars may not have a power steering system. So whatever the common features are there can be placed as a separate class, and the features which are not available can be maintained within that particular company class, like Audi class or Land Rover class or Maruti class, which are specific to that particular car. So whatever the common features can be repeatedly used of that all the cars. So with this Selenium RC, this was not happening. So if the JSON against has to implement some features of a particular application or a particular browser, he has to implement specific to that Firefox, specific to IE, specific to Chrome, specific to Safari. But if that way, if I am going on, the day by day, if you see 3 years ago, the Firefox version was 3.0 and the applications were developed using Java servlets. But at present, if you take, people are using HTML5, Ajax, Flex, GWT, etc. Every day a new technology is coming in. So it was becoming a very big problem for the Selenium RC team to implement these new technologies for every browser. So they have to implement a separate functionality for every browser rather than having like going with a common functionality and implementing for all the browsers. So this way, this particular RC API was becoming bigger and bigger, and it was becoming a very big problem for RC team or the Selenium team to handle it. So that's where this Selenium RC team has come up with a new API called Selenium Webdriver. So then comes the Webdriver. So I was talking about Webdriver. This Webdriver was purely developed using object-oriented programming and follows HTTP protocol. And I was telling you that there was a new API implemented in Webdriver called HTML unit driver. What is this HTML unit driver? It is a browserless execution of test cases. You don't require, so I'm doing a pure functional testing and I'm nowhere specific with any browser. So this particular HTML unit driver will not invoke any browser, but internally it will start executing your test cases and provide you the results. So this was one new API added as part of Webdriver. Along with that, the another advantage that was added in Webdriver was remote invocation. I have the scripts in my computer. For example, if I am running my scripts in my computer, I cannot do any other work like doing another kind of testing in my computer, because once the scripts are running, I cannot open another browser and do all those things because it will affect your running scripts. So what I want to do is I will have the scripts in my computer and execute the browser in another machine. So there is a concept called remote WebDriver in Selenium which will do that. Just I need to give the IP address of the remote machine and invoke a server. It will start executing your scripts on a remote machine of a particular browser. The scripts are in my native machine and the browser will be invoked on a remote machine. That's how you can make sure that you can work on your system, and a remote machine is also, you can, in a remote machine, this browser will be performing the action of running the scripts. Any doubts in Selenium WebDriver? Okay, let me go ahead. So the last one, Selenium Grid. So Selenium Grid is one of the powerful thing that made Selenium again famous. That was Selenium Grid, where I have around 1,000 test cases, and that takes around 10 hours of time. That means an average 1 hour, 100 test cases are running. And I have a continuous regression of my application, and the developers are giving me every day 2 builds. Every day I'm getting 2 builds, and I want to check whether any other build is getting affected of the new build. The functionalities are affecting. So if 10 hours of time execution is happening, and I cannot wait for 10 hours to get a results. Before that I'm getting a new build. So what happens, I cannot see the real results of that particular application. So to overcome that, the Selenium Grid has come up with a feature called multi-browser execution or multi-threading. So I can invoke 10 browsers, 5 browsers of same kind, like five Firefox browsers at a time on my local machine or a remote machine or multiple remote machines, and can run my scripts. And this is multi-thread safe. For example, 1,000 test cases, each thread of Firefox browser. For example, 10 browsers I am invoking. on 5 different machines. Each machine invoking two browsers at a time. So what happens is each browser will take around 100 test cases and start executing those test cases on their particular respective machines. Or else I want to invoke 5 browsers on my local machine itself and run those scripts. Yes, all the 5 browsers will be invoked at a time, and each browser will take a particular script and run. And this is thread safe. That means no browser will affect other browser execution. That means if browser 1 is taking first test case, so browser 2 will never take the first test case again. It will take the next test case. So the only disadvantage is that your RAM memory should be very high. It should be 8 GB or 10 GB to invoke 5 browsers or something like that. If you take 2 or 3 browsers, even 4 GB of RAM is sufficient. But if you are taking 5 browsers at a time, 10 browsers at a time, then it takes a huge consumption of your RAM memory of your computer, and it would affect your script execution as well. So this is one big advantage of Selenium Grid.